Another year has passed and we have ourselves another list of movies to celebrate it with. 2024, I'll just say it was one of the best freaking years for movies that I have seen in the last decade. The last time I felt as though I witnessed a year quite as good as this last year was way back in 2014. I watched over 200 movies that were released in 2024, and I couldn't even get around to all the titles that garnered good word of mouth or critical acclaim, such as The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boy, September 5, The Last Showgirl, among some others. A truly phenomenal standout year for film that I was so amazed to see for myself. In fact, it was such an amazing year that I truthfully couldn't contain myself to only doing a top 10, but rather a top 20 favorite films of the year list. And even with 20 slots available, I still can't fit all the absolute knockouts that I adored immensely throughout 2024. Let me tell you, you have no fucking idea how goddamn difficult it's been to decide what stays and goes for my list here. Holy hell! But without further ado, these are my top 20 reminders from 2024 of why I love movies so much. Number 20, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Starting off my list in the 20th spot is a film included here largely due to nostalgia, I won't deny that. This is a B+ grade flick in a list full of A grades. To me though, I still loved every single moment I got from my experience watching Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. It was just the right movie I needed to give me exactly the kind of boost to pick me back up when I was down. The story may be a bit messy and unfocused, but revisiting this world again with the characters I love so much and the absurd creativity popping right off the screen with Tim Burton's quirky gothic visuals to boot was extremely satisfying. Also, seeing this on the big screen with one of my best friends easily made this one of my favorite theater experiences in a while. Not to mention, Michael Keaton and Catherine O'Hara are downright scene stealers in every frame they're in. I loved seeing them back in their respective roles more alive than ever, in a matter of speaking.
What? Why?
Number 19, Deadpool and Wolverine. This movie made me laugh my ass off not once, but twice in the theater. I was truly surprised how much of a blast I had seeing this third installment to the Deadpool series. Nearly every joke landed for me.
I am soaking wet right now.
The action was bombastic and ridiculous in all the ways we would expect from Deadpool. And of course, the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds' snark and Hugh Jackman's badass gruff demeanor is beyond orgasmic.
Come again.
It was simply an optimistically fun and hilarious popcorn flick with a healthy amount of heart at the center of it all. Number 18, Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Speaking of comic book related films, I grew up with Christopher Reeve as my Superman. To me, he was and will always be Superman, and I believe this documentary sheds light on exactly why that might be true, because even when this man was faced with such a terrifying fate, all due to one simple accident, he still found it within himself to become a true symbol of hope. Spanning across the life, career struggles, and very public tragedy of Christopher Reeve, it was real tough not to get emotional for this unbelievably talented and ambitious guy. He had so much heart to give to this world, and deserved far better than what life had to offer in return. Not going to lie, there were a few moments I struggled not to cry, as we witnessed just how hard things were, not just for Reeve himself, but for all of his loved ones around him at the time. I especially had to fight back some tears when it came to the friendship between Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams, another hugely influential figure from my childhood that I loved and missed so dearly. Watching this documentary felt like I was mourning a major part of my early years I had locked away for a long time now. Yet it also gave me a glimmer of hope that even after death, seeds planted within our lives can sprout to help the world left behind become better, all because one person was able to leave his mark and inspire others before his time was cut too soon.
I wouldn't have missed this for the world.
Number 17, Transformers 1. It really must be said this was a shockingly awesome year for prequels. Between Transformers 1, Apartment 7A, Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, A Quiet Place Day 1, and The First Omen, these films were vastly better than they had any right to be. Oh god fucking damn it! You just had to ruin the streak, didn't you, Mufasa? Transformers 1 was a movie I honestly went in relatively cold and with low expectations. While the marketing for the animated feature never came across as inherently terrible, I did find it mostly underwhelming. As I started the film, I found myself getting a lot of good and solid laughs.
B, these are not the bad guys.
Why did you cut the door?
What? No, it was already like that, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes. It was already like, that's right.
Then along the way, I grew more and more engaged by the two lead characters and their maturely developed dynamic friendship. The arcs that these two go through and the vocal performances behind them were executed flawlessly by Chris Hemsworth as Orion Pax and Brian Tyree Henry as D-16. They influenced my own personal experience with the narrative all the more impactfully as it made it clear how unafraid the script was to take real risks with our characters. I began with little hope for anything special, and my initial cynicism blossomed into having such an exciting epic thrill all the way through.
It's time to show them we are more than meets the eye.
Number 16, Blink Twice. Zoe Kravitz has truly come a long way since my introduction to her talents back in 2011's X-Men First Class. I mean, wow! This is one hell of a directorial debut.
Boy, you're a real sweetheart.
Going in, I had no clue what the actual plot of this was, but the trailer gave me Get Out vibes and had me thoroughly excited to check it out. Thank freaking God that I did, because this was such an unforgettable ride, incorporating suspensefully clever and darkly comedic themes on the cycles of trauma, along with unyielding depravity that corrupts us through wealth and fame. All this inside of a taut satirical horror mystery that unravels at a delightfully steady pace. I'm going to refrain from saying anything more since I believe going into Blink Twice blind is the best way to watch it. Do yourself a favor and see this at your earliest convenience. Number 15, Caligula, the ultimate cut.
If only all Rome had just one neck.
Is this entry technically cheating since Caligula is a film that's existed for decades now? Maybe a wee bit. However, I don't care. This is a brand new edit of the film that restores the original vision of one of my favorite films of all time. There was no way in hell I wasn't going to include the ultimate cut somewhere on this list. The pure astonishment I felt when I learned there was actually going to be a whole new cut of Caligula, and being able to study the wild differences between what was originally intended in the story and what we wound up with in 1979 release was definitely one of the most exciting experiences I had watching a movie out of 2024. The original Caligula, to me, is a one-of-a-kind film unlike any other. Equal parts Roman epic crossed with a political satire and an outrageous exploitation flick that juggles such batshit tone that it's impossible not to look away from.
The waste of this movie. Caligula isn't just artistically bad, it's also offensive in its gratuitous scenes of torture and perversion, of castrations, disembowelments, crucifixions, and other forms of torture that the camera lingers over, and what a piece of trash.
See, even Roger Ebert loves it. Here with the ultimate cut, however, what we're given is a much more mature, slower paced tone that focuses strongly on Caligula Caesar's descent into madness through the overabundance of wealth and unrestrained power. Malcolm McDowell's performance has been fully realized in this version of the movie, and he makes every single second of the runtime feel so heartbreakingly intense and tragic at the center of this surreal downfall. Caligula the Ultimate Cut was a true treat for me to feast on.
Password.
Scrotum.
So be it.
Number 14, Immaculate. Here's a movie that I frankly kept mistaking the marketing for this along with The First Omen every damn time an ad would pop up for either of them. I thought Immaculate and The First Omen, for that matter, would be somewhat generic religious horror films. Then all of a sudden I was hearing some decent word of mouth on both of these titles, which grew my curiosity. Then I saw the film and holy fucking shit! Were my expectations blown out of the water? Because I was not remotely prepared for where this movie was going to take me. Hell, I wasn't even right in the subgenre of horror I was walking into. By the time the final frame hit, I was riveted by the original story and awesomely energized performance by Sydney Sweeney. Please let Immaculate wipe away any trace of her participation in the box office blunder that was Madam Web. This hopefully solidifies Sweeney as an instant scream queen in horror history. So, post-recording, editing John here. Well, after making the Madam Web joke, I went to go find a quick clip to try and make it a little bit funnier with some sort of quote from Sydney Sweeney about the movie or something. And now I feel bad because apparently without that movie, the movie Anyone But You wouldn't exist, which is a tremendous film. And she and Glenn Powell and everyone involved does such an excellent job with. So, yeah, I feel bad. I feel a little bad. So now I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm sorry, Madam Web, for making fun of you. And also seeing some of Sydney Sweeney's interviews, it's like she's just so sweet and genuine and wholesome. Holy crap, do I just feel guilty for ever making a single joke about the movie Madam Web. Fuck you, Sydney Sweeney, you sweet, sweet girl. Damn it! Seriously though, watch Immaculate and watch Anyone But You while you're at it. Really good movies.
Oh. Okay. That's great. I will see you on the other side.
Number 13. Can't find a different mail. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Shut the fuck up! A Different Man is the most recent entry on my favorites list here, as I had only become aware of the film after Sebastian Stan's Golden Globe win for his performance. And I'm so glad this happened, because this turned out to be one of the more weirdly original dark comedies I had seen in some time. The plot starts off in familiar territories of a disfigured man being given a miracle cure to his deformities and a second chance at a happy life, which I assumed wouldn't branch out beyond the similar premises, themes, tones, or concepts we've seen before, whether from like Elephant Man, Johnny Handsome, Mask, or even the 1968 flick Charlie. Boy howdy was I wrong. This is a dark comedy with heavy Woody Allen flares woven into this bizarrely self-aware and unpredictably strange tale our lead stumbles his way into. Watching this film continuously come up with more and more uniquely cruel ways to psychologically torture this poor dude is equally tragic yet hilarious. And Sebastian Stan most certainly earns the Golden Globe win.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna cry? You're gonna cry, titty baby? Oh, you're gonna fucking cry?
Number 12, Love Lies Bleeding. For a while, this was my favorite movie out of the year. As I said previously, though, the competition for great movies to come out in 2024 was truly insane. Taking place in the early 90s, the film centers on a romance blooming between a small-town gym manager, played by Kristen Stewart, and a bodybuilder, played by Katie O'Brien, who get wrapped up in a murderous web of chaos due to a local crime family they're connected to. This is a cool neo-noir styled pressure cooker of a thriller that keeps ramping up more and more as things go along. I felt as though any moment, any character could just spontaneously die at the drop of a hat, and it added so much delightfully stressful tension. That is until we reach the ending, which I won't spoil, but it is so ridiculously, cartoonishly over the top that I couldn't help but embrace the absurdity with open arms. So damn good. Number 11, Greedy People. What starts out as a mundane first day on the job in a small coastal town for a new deputy, played by Himesh Patel, turns into a deviously hilarious cautionary tale about greed.
You don't say!
Although all in all, a much better first day on the job as a cop than Alex Murphy's at least. Watching such small decisions slowly build up and spiral into becoming tremendously detrimental to some of these characters' lives was so mesmerizing that I was hooked very early on. In a number of ways, Greedy People feels like an homage to Joel and Ethan Coen's Fargo, although I honestly enjoyed this more than the 90s classic I mentioned. This was a riveting parable I love seeing unfold. Lastly, Joseph Gordon-Levitt gives one of my favorite character arcs out of the whole year, and also he gives one of my favorite jokes delivered on screen of the whole year as well. So if you want to find out how to get a nun pregnant, you'll have to watch this movie as soon as possible. Number 10, Kill. This was a badass action flick that came out of nowhere for me. I was completely unaware of this movie until I saw it was gathering a small amount of acclaim randomly online. So I figured, what the hell? At first I found the tone to feel slightly goofy, as though we're in a romantic comedy. Then as the action was introduced, I was starting to enjoy the movie more, but still not quite loving it. And then something happens at about the 40-minute mark, and shit gets fucking real. From there on out, the rest of the runtime was a blood-soaked battle between one guy and a large gang of criminals on this train. And every single one of these gang members absolutely regret ever messing with this dude and the woman he loves. Holy hell, what a blood-pumping, kick-ass train ride to behold here. Do not sleep on this one. Number 9, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
George Miller is at it again with another grand-scale action epic in the world of Mad Max. This installment focuses on the character Furiosa, previously played by the superb Charlize Theron, and is now taken on by the equally talented Anya Taylor-Joy in a prequel to Fury Road to develop Furiosa's story of revenge before her eventual redemption years later. This film was way too many damn years in the making, as Miller proves that he is a visionary to be reckoned with, still holding a fiercely strong eye for bringing us gorgeously grimy storytelling along with spectacularly chaotic action centered around one of the coolest action movie heroines to grace the big screen in the last decade. Then moving on to Chris Hemsworth as Dementus.
Ready, steady, go!
Who gives, without a doubt, my favorite villainous performance out of 2024. Unhinged, devilishly cunning, over the top, funny as hell, tragic in his own right, layered in ways that truly make his character come to life, and yet evil incarnate as he showcases the worst in humanity. Hemsworth is fucking terrific, balancing it all, while never taking away too much focus from Anya to also shine through with her portrayal of Furiosa and the parallels they share together in their thirst for blood. Which, by the way, the intensity in Anya's eyes is so damn potent throughout that I am fully locked into every frame she's in. I need more Mad Max Furiosa movies, please!
I want them back!
Number 8, Longlegs. Walking out of the theater, admittedly, I was somewhat perplexed by Longlegs. I knew I liked the film for sure, however, there were supernatural elements that I wasn't expecting from the world building that threw me off initially, and I wasn't so certain how to process that aspect. As time passed after my initial viewing, I grew to love and appreciate the cold tonal throwback to psychological thrillers like Silence of the Lambs while blending it with otherworldly and demonic forces, creating a far more original take on the gritty detective noirs that we've become all too familiar with by now. An overwhelming sense of dread oozes out of this slow burn portrait of evil in its purest form, especially when it comes to the titular character himself, performed by my favorite actor of all time, Nicolas fucking Cage.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Giving us a Nick Cage role we have not ever seen before. And that was truly exciting for me to see after all his years of already astonishing work, yet he's still got more tricks up his sleeve.
I know you're not afraid of a little bit of dark. Because you are the dark.
Number 7. Boy Kills World. Clearly the unofficial continuation of Boy Meets World. Goddamn, things got a little dark and rough after the college years, I guess. Seriously though, Boy Kills World has possibly the best laughs I got out of a film all year. Bouncing hilariously bloody carnage and fantastic heart in its core, in this exceedingly better tale on vengeance starring Bill Skarsgård over that god-awful clusterfuck remake of The Crow.
What's the worst thing you've ever done?
Truth be told, it was pretty damn disappointing to learn that this film had bombed so hard at the box office, although given the piss-poor marketing done for it, it's no surprise as to how and why this failed to gather the numbers it rightfully deserved. This is an ambitiously absurd, surreal, subversive, clever action movie wrapped up in gruesome dark humor, plus the physical performance by Skarsgård and the vocal performance by H. John Benjamin.
Booger Boss is gonna get you!
Behind the same lead character balance the scales effortlessly of being awesome, funny, and deeply human. The silly yet heartfelt dynamic between our lead and his sister brings so much beauty to the picture as well. All I have to say to this movie is,
The boss returned to murder.
Dodo buns sound fun. Oh, wait. Dodo buns are not fun.
Number 6. The Count of Monte Cristo. Looking back on my list here, I've noticed a heavy reoccurring theme on revenge. Maybe my heart secretly yearns to be avenged as I found comfort in these stories seeking vengeance for me. But enough of philosophy on my own sad mind. Let's talk about one of my favorite films delving into themes of vengeance, justice, and the blurred line between. What would any of us do when we're given the opportunity to either start a new life after the loss of a previous one, or does our hatred manifest into something darker and fuel a malicious path of retribution? Yes, The Count of Monte Cristo has been adapted for the big and small screen quite literally 100 times. And yes, it has been years since I've last seen any of those other depictions, but this particular adaptation made this world and these characters feel fully realized, and I loved every minute of this 3-hour epic take on this over century-old novel. In all honesty though, I would have been content with this movie being even longer. This was an epic story on a man's decades-long descent into his thirst for revenge and how much he's willing to lose himself to seek his own personal justice. Number 5. Strange Darling. I believe there is one major component that propels this work from being a really good film into a pretty great one, and that's the innovative editing of the story's structure. Because of the unorthodox and non-linear narrative, we are immediately thrown into a relentlessly exhilarating, high-paced cat-and-mouse thriller. But who's the hunter and who's the hunted? Strange Darling magnificently subverts expectations by flipping everything on its head in a blink of an eye so fluidly that it's truly hypnotizing to watch, intense and smartly crafted, while the leads played by Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner grip the audience by the throat tight with their performances and refuse to let go until we are on our last breath. Their chemistry and the suspense drawn between them is a work of viciously palpable art.
Do you have any idea the kind of risks a woman like me takes every time she agrees to have a little fun?
Number 4, Saturday Night. Jason Reitman is a terrifically talented director with 2 decades worth of great work, but Saturday Night might be my favorite of his films to date. Taking place in 1975 on the iconic sketch show's premiere night, we follow the chaos of every insane detail that went into just airing this pilot, which no one was 100% sure would even succeed. Over the course of 90 minutes prior to runtime, we see just how many things go wrong and how many factors work against these ambitious young comics to get this insane idea of a TV show off the ground. The fluid juggling of anxiety-inducing mayhem and quick-witted humor is handled masterfully. Every member of this cast captures their respective iconic comedians perfectly. They're all fucking flawless. I loved every minute of this film, tossing me back and forth between laughing my ass off and stressing me the hell out for about an hour and a half.
The writers tied a belt around Big Bird's neck and hung him from my dressing room door.
Hey, I heard about Big Bird. So sorry. Autoerotic asphyxiation, who knew?
Number 3, Anora. A film about a stripper that's somehow even better than Showgirls? What?
Man, everybody got AIDS and shit.
The spontaneous pseudo-love story between a stripper named Annie, Mikey Madison, and Ivan, a Russian Nepo baby, Mark Eidelstein. Until word reaches Ivan's parents of their relationship and things get nuts over the course of one long night.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Anora is grounded in the grimy, gritty streets of New York that impressively creates such turbulent mayhem with pitch-perfect humor. The true standout talent easily goes to Mikey Madison, who steals this whole film, providing so much heart and a delightfully sharp edge to her performance that brings an electrifying flavor to the chaos. Anora feels like a solid companion piece to a Safdie Brothers picture, like Good Time or Uncut Gems, with the street-level grit and the colorfully charismatic yet unhinged characters making one terrible decision after another until the story spirals wildly out of control. And the final conclusion, with the titular character herself, brings such a beautiful depth to her arc that made this a must-see movie out of the whole year.
You go fuck yourself!
Me go fuck myself, me fuck myself, you go fuck yourself and your fucking mother, motherfucker!
Number 2, Challengers. Challengers was a film that was on the very top of my list for several months. It was literally there up until about a week or two ago when I saw what is currently on my number 1 spot. Initially, I knew little to nothing about this movie outside of the ads emphasizing heavily on a strange sexual dynamic between the 3 leads.
Must be weird not having anybody come on you.
And that's basically all I knew going in. If someone told me this film would find a way to make a single match of tennis one of the most riveting plot lines of the year, I would not have believed them. But that's exactly what happened here. My own personal arc I had with this film was actually one of my favorite experiences I had watching a movie last year. As in the first act, I was disoriented by the seemingly sloppy narrative structure and pacing. Then as the story went on, I found myself drawn in deeper by the charm and mystique of the leading trio, and the strange structure started making more sense to me. One of my favorite aspects about Challengers is how the heavy dialogue-driven scenes were delivered and shot in a way that felt as though every conversation between our leads were matches of a tennis game within themselves. A discussion starts off as a casual back and forth until one quick word ramps things up into a full-blown competition. It was so cool to me. Then the ending. Oh my God, the ending still might be my favorite ending of any film I've seen in the last few years. It really did end on such a perfect note. In the hands of a lesser filmmaker or writer, the ending could have made this whole movie drop from greatness into just simply being okay. That is how much Challengers relies so drastically on its closing chapter. And before we get on to our number 1 spot, here are a lot of honorable mentions. Apartment 7A, Flow, Cuckoo, The Order, Heretic, Nosferatu, A Quiet Place, Day One, The Last Stop in Yuma County, The Wild Robot, It Ends With Us. Smile 2, The First Omen, Late Night with the Devil, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Knox Goes Away, Snack Shack, Terrifier 3, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, A Fall Guy, The Substance, If, Azrael, and so on and so forth. And last but certainly not least, we have ourselves in the number 1 spot, A Real Pain. 2024 provided a lot of outstanding surprises, but a real pain is the one that hit directly to my heart, and I fell completely in love with it. It's been a very long time since I've been affected by a film this deeply. I connected with these two misfit cousins in ways I don't think I ever have with any other characters before in a film. Not only did I love these two extremely different characters, but I genuinely felt as though elements of both roles were a blend I saw within myself. With the introverted and anxious yet mostly put together David, played by Jesse Eisenberg, who never wants to make waves or elicit any sort of conflict, favoring to bottle himself up and remain silent if it means keeping the peace, even at the detriment of real growth. Reserved to a fault, finding it difficult to connect with those around him and even his own emotions. Then there's the polar opposite in the sadly directionless yet lovable Benji, played by Kieran Culkin, who finds happiness bringing people together, making everyone around him laugh and smile. Despite that, inwardly there is a pain behind his eyes and a loneliness he struggles to thwart off. He's loud and abrasive and feels every emotion to its fullest, for better or worse. Not only do I love these characters, but part of me also feels as though I am these characters from how much I was able to relate to them. As the story went on, observing the awkward dynamic between the two leads as they clearly love each other and yearn to reconnect on this tour through Poland after years of estrangement, things don't go as smoothly as they would like. The teetering between camaraderie and quarreling with the pair is extremely infectious. Layered on top of the battling duality of these cousins are beautiful, insightful themes on family and loss, family heritage, history, depression, and learning from our past and the past of those who came before us, all wrapped up in a fucked up Holocaust tour. I think that I related most to Kieran's character being this type of person who obviously does not have his life figured out in the slightest and struggles to make progress for himself. Yet he has this deep desire to enrich the life of others with joyful memories, to make everyone feel not so alone and welcomed and loved, no matter how contrasting their personalities might be. Benji sees someone's pain and attempts to fight it off for them with his natural charm while unable to do the same for himself. This film is the most human work of art I have seen all year and possibly in many years, which blew my mind with how personal I took this movie. I know I'll carry it with me always. Also, I must add, the poetic symmetry crafted with the film's final shot is another perfect ending, giving us enough hope for our characters that maybe things can get better, and they've grown from this trip, but also leaving enough room to interpret that there might be a bleaker conclusion over the horizon. How we perceive it determines whether we remain optimistic or embrace sorrow.
There is no hope!
Well, that's it. That is my best, favoritist, most terrifically awesomest films of 2024 that I loved so much. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to them, me rant and jibber jabber about them endlessly. But anyways, I hope that everyone had a great 2024, and I hope that there is more good things along the way for everyone in 2025. Have a good day, a good week, a good month, a good year, a good life. Take care.